So, Jules, thanks for coming on the podcast. Do you want to start off with a quick introduction of yourself and the business, and then we'll take it from there?
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Jules. I'm one of two co-founders of Tally Workspace. We specialize in helping startups and scale-ups, predominantly in London, find workspace. So it's mainly office space, full-time office space, but we also do ad hoc meeting rooms, co-working, event space, anything you name it. Predominantly companies who are like 10 to probably 100 people.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get into what the business does in a bit more detail later on. Do you want to give us a quick tour of your career before the business, and then maybe take us into starting the business and where that idea came from?
Sure, it's quite all over the place, I warn you. When I first started working, I did like a grad scheme at TomTom. Do you remember like the sat navs? So I did that for a year. Then I moved into finance and worked predominantly in shipping. So it was to do with buying and selling big like oil and cargo ships. So I did that in London and then in Singapore. And then I did an MBA at Cambridge. And then it's like when I was at Cambridge, I got very into the startup scene there because they obviously have like a huge startup community, a lot of funding, a lot of incredible, mainly like health tech companies in all honesty, but a lot of amazing companies coming out of there. So I did a lot of like support in that ecosystem. And yeah, then I got into startups in general. So then when I graduated from my MBA, I was looking to work for a fintech company to kind of combine my finance with startups. And I remember just going through really good VCs portfolios and looking at products and really just being like, what is a cool product to work for? And then I ended up working at a company called Soldo. They're like a scale up fintech based in the UK. I think they're now probably like 150 people. Yeah. And then from there, myself and Laura co-founded, Laura's a friend from university. We co-founded Tally Workspace. Yeah, about 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago now.
Very good. For people listening to this as soon as it comes out, 4.5 or 4 years ago is probably the peak of a global pandemic of where everybody's working alone. So where does the idea come from to then start to start Tally Workspace?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if it's true, but I feel like Laura and I always had like a bit of like founder in us. We would always talk about business ideas. I cannot
Yeah.
tell you how many awful business ideas I have. But my one last week was about like toilet marketing. It was like putting screens in the back of toilets was like my new great idea. But yeah, I think we always talked about different business ideas. And I think, I guess COVID gave you the time to really like think about them a little bit more. Really, at the time, the idea for Tally came because my company was paying over £1 million a year for a serviced office space, but like no one was allowed to go to the office. But they still were paying the rent for it. And then Laura's company, she's in finance, they were also paying like a lot for workspace and having to make people redundant at the same time. So it was just like the huge cost of workspace and people actually weren't able to use it. And then I kind of think we thought the way that people use workspace, where workspace is, the type of workspace that's going to be needed is just going to change. And I don't think we had a real insight on what that was going to be. But we kind of then decided that was like an area of interest for us, predominantly because like, I guess we were some of those people. I was like in some teeny flat, like I couldn't even work from home. So I was like, where am I going to work when this all
Yeah.
comes like finishes? So we interviewed over 1,000 different startups and scale ups because that's the world that we both came from, and interviewed them and just asking, what they think they're going to do about workspace when things go like slightly coming out of COVID, like what they're currently doing, what their ambitions are, what they're kind of like optimizing for, like culture, cost, like what it is. And then out of that, we've made the first iteration of Tally, which was, we call it the Tally Flex platform, but essentially it's a marketplace where we have access to loads of co-working spaces, meeting rooms and event spaces, and people can just book it ad hoc. You can either just do ad hoc bookings, or there is the ability to add all your team members, give them a monthly budget, and then they can book their own workspaces as and when they want. So that was like the first product, and we made a really terrible iteration of it on Squarespace. Got a couple of people using it when we were first allowed to go out the house, and they would book local workspaces to them. And then we won an Innovate UK grant to kind of build the actual marketplace, which now when I play around with Lovable and backlit and stuff. I'm like, that would have been a lot easier to try. It was actually like I was on some Squarespace website, like pretending it was like integrated and like answering phones. I'm like, it would have been so much easier. But yeah, that was kind of like how it came about in the first place.
I know that you've mentioned like the first iteration of Tally. It might be good to jump forward a little bit and then we'll go back of what it looks like now and the difference between now and when you first started.
Yeah, sure. I guess, as I say, our focus has always really been on startups and scale ups. So we really just like responding to their needs in a way. So yeah, first of all, we had like the ad hoc spaces. Then people started wanting to meet up as groups. So we focused a bit more on like meeting rooms and day offices. Then people decided they wanted to have an office again. A lot of them had managed to surrender their leases or their license agreements. So people were going back to having offices. So then we started a whole other marketplace, which was we call it full-time offices, but essentially it's like a private space you have, like anyone has a normal office. So we started a marketplace for offices. And this started with serviced offices. So that's like the brands, so like a WeWork or a Huckletree or a WorkLife, etc. So we kind of like aggregated them all onto the platform. And we also have like a really amazing team of salespeople who will like guide you through that process. So every single person that comes to Tally who wants an office will have like an individual with them who will guide them through the process. It's like tech enabled, but you obviously have an individual. And then, yeah, as our clients started to grow, I mean, I guess the nature of startups and scale ups is a lot shrink and a lot have exponential growth. So a lot of them who started to grow, they then wanted a more traditional leased office space, but they quite often wanted like incredible branding and they wanted this managed. So like a more recent evolution of Tally is like we also offer these like larger lease spaces where we can do the fit out, we can do everything for you. So people were taking them for much like longer periods of time. So yeah, essentially we want to be like the go-to for everything to do with workspace. So you don't really have to do it. For that specific community of companies.
We'll go back to the earlier days then, and something that obviously sticks out is the amount of people that you just spoke to in getting some, I guess, market research and finding out what people actually wanted. How valuable are those conversations that you have in terms of then actually being able to go back to them and say, we've built this thing and do you want to use it? Is that the main driver of growth in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we thought about it at the time, but obviously it was an amazing then database we had of people to go back to like test the product on, but also that became clients of ours. And like still lots of that are long-term clients of ours, those original people that we reached out to. But at the beginning, like it really wasn't a sales play, that original group of people that we got feedback from, but it did become like an amazing sounding board for us and an amazing client base. That we speak to now. We have tried to like redo big kind of like research pieces like that, but I think that was such a time that people had a lot of time on their hands, and so they were happy to like jump on calls and speak for hours about Workspace and their frustrations. Whereas I think one of the issues with Workspace in general is like it's no one's job. Like in every company, it falls upon different people because it's such an ad hoc responsibility, and that's like something that we're trying to help with because yeah, the person who's doing it, they're like, I've never done this before. I don't know how to do it. It's quite a big responsibility. It's a big budget. I'm not trained in this. But yeah, that original kind of like research piece was really helpful. I think in terms of also just like realizing the pain points of our ICP, it was really helpful.
Yeah. And what's the, obviously you've got a co-founder to start the business. So you both are doing everything in the business. What are the first team members that you start to add to that, and what tasks do they take away from you?
Yeah, it was interesting actually. So yeah, Laura and I started it. My like speciality, I would say, is much more like sales and marketing, and Laura's is very much like operation and finance. So obviously we were doing everything together, but I think quite early on we definitely took like two different sides of the business, and we always get a bit worried when we're talking to each other a bit much because we shouldn't be doing the same stuff. Like I really shouldn't know about her stuff and she shouldn't know about my stuff. Interestingly, I went part-time at my old company. And then I was working part-time at like Soldo, my previous company, and Tally. And then at that time, we hired our first full-time employees. So I wasn't even one of the first full-time employees of Tally. We had some other employees first. So our first employee was tech. So we had like our tech lead build the product. She's still with us, which is amazing. And then the other one was a customer service role, because at that point it was like very much transactional meeting rooms, hot desk. It wasn't these like longer workspace projects that we do now. So those two I think were full-time before I was even full-time, which was interesting. But then as soon as we got some investment, obviously then we had the means to be able to like for Laura and I to both go full time into the business as well. But I think people think that like startups just like suddenly start and you're full time, but like for us, there was like probably a good like 9 months of like a slow transition of like research, doing a bit at the weekends. Like it was definitely like a side hustle for like a relatively long time.
What point do you go full time?
Well, for us, that was when we got investment, because the terms of our term sheet is that you,
Right.
I completely understandably, if someone's giving you money to the business, they're like, you have to commit 100% of your time to this, or like 120% of your time. So for us, that made it possible because we had some money. And yeah, it's like the terms of it anyway. So yeah, but we were lucky because in COVID you have all the time. So I was basically working 2 full-time jobs at that time. And at the time I didn't have any other responsibilities. So it was kind of perfect.
You mentioned that, and it's always the case. Well, the majority of founders that have a co-founder is always one person looks after one thing and one person looks after the other, which makes complete sense because there's not much point if that wasn't the case. And you take care
Yeah.
of, you mentioned like the sales side of it, so it'd be good to go into that. And I know that you're now at a point where you are sort of half removed from sales and the founder-led sales, but it'd be good to go through like that journey of how you were getting new business to start with. We mentioned that like the research group that you had at the start, you can keep in contact with those people. What other activities were you doing? Maybe not just at the start, but as you get into, you get your funding, your full time, what activities are you then doing?
We had quite quickly built a sales team, and obviously part of their role is outreach. We have actually never had a structure, which I had come from and I think is really traditional in tech companies, of like SDR, AE, etc. So we've always had full sales cycle people who will start with the customer and carry on to close. So yeah, a lot of I'd say a third of our activity has always been by those salespeople. So traditional methods of like cold calling, email, events, LinkedIn, just like traditional outreach methods, like based on different signals. I think the hard thing with Workspace is normally companies only need an office like once a year, once every 2 years. So the chances of finding someone who needs Workspace at that exact time that you happen to call, it's not like you can sell them a product they don't need, or like they do need, but they don't know they need. You see what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah, we've always done like some quite traditional sales. A lot of like, I think 20% at the moment of our customer base is like repeat business. So like clients that we've like worked with before, or like referrals. We've always been really big on SEO. I think like the nature of Workspace, and I think probably more the nature of any marketplace product, is like SEO, both technical and content wise, has always been like a big driver for us. So probably like a third sales outreach, a third SEO. We do some like, I'm going to call it growth marketing for a lack of a better words. Like we're always like trying new things. I think one of my deep flaws as a founder is like I always have like the shiny object and I'm like, this is going to change everything. And then I do it and it doesn't make any impact at all. So I was always like trying some new things. But yeah, then yeah, we have always done quite a lot of founder-led sales. I think as a founder, you're so embedded in like the startup community, if it's like WhatsApp groups, Slack groups, just like communities that you're part of, like investors that you always get recommendations, referrals, etc. So I think that always has been like such a big driving force of the sales at Tally, which, as you say, we're making such a concerted effort not to do that. And I think what's been really nice is Laura and I have both have kids since we started Tally, so we've both taken like chunks of time off, and like to see the business like work without us is like such a nice thing, isn't it? Because at the beginning, like that's not really possible. So yeah, we're trying to like slowly transition. Yeah, well, actually not slowly, as quickly as possible into like the founder-led sales being like the like icing on the cake rather than any part of like fundamental growth.
You mentioned like the sales team, they do their outbound and stuff, but a lot of it is relationships.
Yeah.
What foundations do you have to lay for them to then say, because if they have come from traditional SDR AE backgrounds, how do you get them to change like their habits? And I know from working with salespeople and big sales teams that getting them to do the boring stuff, if you like, of following up and making sure they're on top of the relationships. What are some of the things that you've used to help them keep on top of all of that and trust them to say, go and build your own relationships and manage them?
Yeah, I think we've actually never hired anyone from the world of Workspace. Like we've never hired any like Workspace brokers. So the background of our sales team is quite varied. Obviously quite a few from sales, but a few never have done sales before at all. And so I think what's been quite helpful is there's quite a big like learning curve if you think about it, because a big value of using Tally as like a customer is like the inherent knowledge that our sales team have. They've been to hundreds, if not thousands, of different offices. They can tell you all the nuances of every single building, and that's a big thing that we're trying to get into the product, is like so much of it is like held in your head, and that's why like they do have value as individuals as well. And so I think there's like a huge learning curve when they start working. We just try and get them out to see as many buildings as possible, on as many tours as possible, like listening to people's pains. It's very consultative as like a sales process. So I think in a way they don't really bring like their old habits, because it's not like selling a SaaS product. It's not like I can just use the same skills. Like it is we've never hired anyone who has that background with that knowledge like pre-built in. So I think they start again. And I think we just always try and be like a really helpful culture. So like the sales team, like I like to think, are like really close, and we'll always help each other out, and we'll like guide each other. There's quite often like more than one person working on one, I say deal, but like it's more like a client relationship, isn't it? It's like there's normally more than one person working with a client to like help them find their workspace beforehand. And I think the nature of it is like when we work with clients, to say they want a 100-person office in Shoreditch, you will spend like 3 or 4 months with these people out and about visiting offices. You're on Ubers with them, you're on trains with them, you're taking line bikes across London. Like you spend a lot of time with them. So I think the sales individuals, like it's not hard for them to form good relationships and like carry those forward just by like the nature of how much time you spend.
That's good. That's interesting. How did you figure out that that was the right way to go rather than traditional salespeople? Did you stumble upon it from your first hires, or was it always planned?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. A lot of the sales team do have sales backgrounds. They just don't have them like within the workspace world, which I think is quite different. But yeah, I don't know. I think we just hired for kind of like, I think with all startups, you just like hire for hustle at the beginning, don't you? Like hustle, like personal, logistics, like organizational. I think we just like more hired for traits than we were like specifically not wanting to hire for like a workspace person.
We're going to go on. So I know we spoke about this last time, and you mentioned that it's a very noisy and competitive market now. I guess coming out of COVID, you were one of the only ones that were sort of offering this at the time. I can't imagine many people got into the office workspace and that industry coming out of COVID, because there was so much uncertainty about it. How has that evolved now? You mentioned off camera as well that people are starting to move back to office now rather than working from home. How has that been for like more competitors coming about? And I guess a lot of people have changed their business models.
Yeah, I think, when we started Tally, and I'm going to say Tally Flex, like the meeting room and hot desk booking, there was a lot of similar products that came about in the market after COVID. I probably could have named at the time like 20 different companies that started kind of like an on-demand platform.
Yeah.
After like 6 months, a year, like 80% of them fell away. And I think with that, like I'm obviously not sure of the specifics of those companies at all, but I think part of the reason like Tally survived in inverted commas is just like relentless execution from us. Like we were just like, we want to run the business like in inverted commas like properly. We were always like very overcautious, I would say, and we're just like relentlessly executing and like keeping going. So I think a lot of startups is literally, it's like kind of just doing the stuff, isn't it? Like it's not going to magically happen. So yeah, it was very busy in terms of like competitors in that part of it. And then that kind of fell away a little bit. Then it was a little bit of a quieter market. And for us, when we went into full-time offices, so like people's like HQs, it wasn't as busy. But then in the last year or so, as people have started coming back to the offices, obviously a couple of years ago, but as that has ramped up and like people are going, there was like a period where everyone had like a part-time office, and like that's pretty hard to facilitate, etc. And then people started doing like full-time offices again, which is like most companies I would say that we deal with. Yeah, well, all of them nearly have full-time offices. There has been like a bit of explosion of much smaller office brokerages. There's like a software that came on the market that kind of enabled that as well. So there's a lot of like 1-2 man bands who will just know a couple of companies and do a few deals a year. So there's been an explosion of like the much smaller individual office brokerages, and a few extra in terms of like competitors to Tally. But yeah, it is just a competitive market. There's not like huge barriers to entry for it. But in the plus side, like demand is going in our favor. Like a lot of people are wanting like office space and workspace. And also on the supply side, because I guess we're a marketplace product, like I think the amount of flexible office space per year is still growing like 20%. And like London is leading for that. But obviously lots of other big cities like throughout the Europe and throughout the world obviously growing. So like demand and supply is on our side, but there is a huge amount of competition that I guess in any market that's growing comes about at the same time.
What would you say? I might put you on the spot a little bit, but how does Tally stand out from the rest of them?
Yeah, I think there's only a couple. I can probably name only one other like workspace provider, I'm going to say for a lack of a better word, that has the two products where essentially we'll find you a full-time office, but also we can support with the hot desk and meeting rooms. There's that in terms of having that combination is quite rare. And a lot of companies we work with use that in terms of we might fund them an HQ in London, but then they might have a remote team like dotted around Europe or the world, and their remote team can use the Tally Flex product to book ad hoc spaces. And they can also use it for like events, all hands days, etc. So in terms of having like a one place to go for all of that, there's not much competition in that. But I think for Tally, like we've always been very tech focused. We have all our own software, we have all our own data. So in terms of like the way that we're able to present back options to you, making sure we have 100% like market overview for everyone. So I think for us, there's also like the tech part of it, which is all like we're very like make sure that that is very good. And then I think there is something which I guess is related to the culture of Tally, which is like all the salespeople are incredible. Like they are amazing and they are very knowledgeable and they will always do the best for you. And I think they will like really hold your hand. Like they're not just trying to get like a deal across the line. Like I think there is something which is like embedded in the culture of Tally, which like then goes to the clients, if you see what I mean. So it's probably hard to like name that, but yeah. So I'd say the three things are like the actual product itself being the marriage of full-time offices with the flexible. There's like a huge tech part of it, which is like our actual software, which is like a real asset. And then there is like just the nature of the sales team and like the Tally way of doing things, which means it's like, you know, I would like to think we actually have 100%. We send like feedback forms to everyone we do deals with, and we have today had 100% people saying that they would like recommend us or use us again. So I think just that like relentlessly making sure that the deals are like to a high standard.
The more conversations I've had recently, especially on the podcast and the more AI comes into everything else, the more people seem to be going back to like the human touch and like how that is helping them stand out a little bit now.
Definitely. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it?
Next thing I wanted to touch on was, I know that you were pretty active on LinkedIn and have grown quite a good following on there. What sort of impact has that made on the business, and has it been something that you've like leaned into like on purpose, or has it just been I'll do a few posts and it's sort of grown like that, or has there been some real purpose behind it?
Yeah, I think definitely. So I remember like when I was on my MBA, we had like a one-off class on LinkedIn. It was like, by the way, everyone, if you're looking for jobs, because obviously everyone in my class was going to be looking for a job, they were like, you know, these are the basics. And this is like 8-9 years ago now. And I remember being like, oh my goodness, I wonder how you get to 500 connections. That seems mad. Like I would love it if that happens. Like I was so excited. So I think that I was like, okay, I'm going to try and get to 500 connections just so I look presentable to employers. That was like the original purpose when I was like doing my MBA. Then I didn't use LinkedIn for ages. Like I would use it for like research, like Sales Navigator, for like sales, etc. At Soldo. Like I would use it as like a research tool essentially, but I wasn't doing any posting. And then with Tally, I then started like posting, etc. But a lot of it was like actually for research. I would be doing so many polls, which I know are like not popular and they're not good for algorithms now, or etc. I don't think, or no one seems to do them, so I don't think they can be. But I was doing a lot of like research polls on like, what do people want? What does this want? So it wasn't like, I wasn't like proactively doing it for sales or anything. I was just like doing it as kind of like a, like more like an interest in a way, like what people wanting, what people like commenting on, etc. And then I think I just like built a lot of connections through that. And then at one point it just seemed to become like a chat for me. Like I would just chat to people, like we started like a newsletter. I would just end up like messaging people on LinkedIn as if it was just like my email inbox, if you see what I mean. And then I think by like nature of our job, like I don't do as many office viewings now because we have an amazing sales team and like they're doing the majority of them. But I was also just like out on viewings a lot, like I'm viewing amazing buildings, like wanting to like show off stuff that the team was doing. And so yeah, there probably was like some interesting stuff to put out there. But yeah, it wasn't really like, I guess like no one is not trying to grow their network if they're posting, but it wasn't
Yeah.
like a real like push to do it in that way. But yeah, I think it's so funny. Like even when I was away for like 4 months for maternity leave, I've come back and like I do one post out and it gets no attention. I did one post like before I went away and I had like something like crazy, like 2 million views. It was like the most boring thing in the world. So like, I just don't think I understand LinkedIn in all honesty. So like, yeah, I just don't think if I try that hard, it works. But yeah, it's something actually that our sales team, we do push them to do because we do want them to be seen as like thought leaders. They do go out on buildings and viewings all the time. They're out and about. So I'm like, it is crazy that you're not like promoting these buildings, promoting what you're doing. Like, and I think, as you say, people want like that human touch. Like they want to know that that person is a trusted individual. And I think you do have to have some kind of like human like face or a name or a personality behind you. Like, I don't think you can just like, yeah, have a business without that really these days.
Yeah, and I've been saying for a while now. I think, especially for like the relationship type sales that we talked about, that sales teams will change to almost like influencers rather than
Yeah,
salespeople,
100%.
and they'll just
Yeah.
bring their like the sales teams will get a lot smaller, but the people on it will have a lot more, just have their reach, and they'll bring all their audience with them. Like
Definitely.
I've seen in a few companies that attract the LinkedIn influencer, if you like, and
Yeah.
that's how they're building the sales. They don't necessarily do their outbound and stuff. They just leverage the network and the content that they put out, and I've been saying probably since I've done the podcast actually from February that I think that's where
Yeah.
sales teams are going. So it's interesting that you're
It's
pushing
interesting
that.
to see on LinkedIn, like there's a couple of people I follow. I could probably name like 10 people on LinkedIn that I like religiously love, if you know what I mean. Like I don't know, obviously I'm just getting pushed their stuff, but like I love. And it's interesting to see like one's gone to work for Lovable now recently, one's gone to work for Fixer, like these huge names. And I'm like, oh, like it's not a coincidence that, these huge influencers are getting like taken in, like, and I wouldn't say to do specific jobs. It's like they just have the reach. Like obviously that's a hiring method, isn't it? So
Yeah.
yeah, I do think that. And what is like the first company is like, I'm sure you've seen it as well, like that the first companies are getting funded where they don't have products, they just have influence. It's like, I don't even have a product yet, but I've got like a 2 million person following. So like whatever I make, they'll buy. And it's like, well, yeah, that's completely fair enough. You have distribution. Like, so yeah, I do think we are trying to push the sales team to do that a lot. And like, they're so good at it. So it's crazy that they haven't been doing it before. So I'm like, you actually are really good.
Good stuff. We'll move on to the last topic then, and you can go wherever you want with this, and it's always what's next. So whether that's, we've touched on industry of how it's evolved, but business, personal, industry, wherever you want to go with that. What's next for Tally Workspace or whatever you want?
Yeah, big question. I think with Tally, like at the moment, we're just so focused on like revenue growth, really. So we're really trying to get like our bread and butter, which is like finding offices for companies of like 10 to, I'm going to say like 70 people, like with the sales team, with tech, with SEO, etc. Like with all these amazing like AI tools, etc. We're just trying to really like make that like a watertight process and operation, if you see what I mean, like really build like that GTM machine whilst also testing in other areas of Workspace. So we recently, I mean, we have done for a while, but we do a lot more like traditional lease deals, as I say. So we're like testing a lot with like how we can participate more in that market. We'll obviously test with like SEO and other geographies to like see if there's anything interesting out there. There's a lot of stuff around like wraparound services in terms of like fit outs and other like services you can provide in addition to like Workspace or like as a complementary product. So like I think like by nature of us being like founders and as I say, like briny shy objects, we'll always like try with these different things to see if anything bites. And yeah, like with all the amazing like AI tools, that makes it possible. Like on Monday we just had like a workshop and like we all have to spin up basically like a new sub company of Tally. Like you can test these things like so incredibly well now.
Yep.
So yeah, I think for us it's like a really focus on making like a really sustainable like company that's growing, even if it's like slowly it's like really trying to get the ops and processes down. And then part of that is like trying to make it not so founder sales focused as well, is like a big thing for us. So yeah, I think much of the same. And as I said before, like it sounds so unglamorous, but like I do feel like there's just like a relentless execution to make like a proper business. Like, I wouldn't say we're like in proper startup hustle anymore. We're like that awkward stage where you're like not quite big enough to be proper, but not quite small enough to be on the hustle. So it's like at the moment, like we're just trying to bridge that gap.
If people like the sound of you and want to check out Tally, and if they're looking for a workspace, where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely. I would love that. So obviously our website is Tally Workspace, which is Tally Workspace. And yeah, you can like message us on there. Obviously you can add me on LinkedIn and yeah, and also like DM me on there if you want. So like Jules Robertson. Yeah, hopefully we're targeting you in some kind of marketing. So maybe just reply to our emails. But yeah. Hopefully you'll hear our name. It is quite nice now that you go to events and you're like Tally Workspace, and like I'm not saying a lot, but a few people are like, oh, I've heard of you, whereas before it was like telemarketing. Like what? So yeah, hopefully the name spreads. You never know.
Very good. Very good. Well, Jules, thanks for coming on the podcast. And I always say this, but maybe we'll do it again in a year's time and see if you're fully out of.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, I'd love that. Thanks so much.
Cool.